Thank you for joining me today at Learnwake. My name is Brandon Judd, and I'm responding to a submission that was sent in by Gabe to analyze his Heelside back roll wake to wake. And in Gabe's submission, he says, I've probably landed the back roll over 100 times, but the older I get, the harder it seems to do. I really want to get this trick dialed. I'm overthinking this trick and need to do a bit of work on the edge. I generally get around 8 times out of 10, and I have a lot of problems with the landing and have lost my confidence and really have a bad habit of dropping the handle. I would like to I would like a better edge, more air, and any ideas on how to stop dropping the handle. Um, Thanks for submitting that, Gabe. That helps me understand kind of where you're at with this. I was gonna say it looks like you've been doing this a bunch before, and I'm glad that you mentioned that you do land it and you're just having a harder time. That's a normal thing for a lot of people when they go through kind of their natural phases of learning in wakeboarding. It's really weird. I go through it specifically really hard. It's kind of annoying. I get kind of a beginner's luck with some tricks. Other tricks I have to work really hard on. But then as soon as I land them, whether it takes me a while to get it or I get kind of a beginner's luck stage, um, it starts to, I guess, in my head, feel like it's an easy thing, and or I want to take it bigger or I want to change it or something. And so I end up kind of falling into this bad habit that I have developed after I start landing it, and then I stop landing it, and I just lose the trick for a while. Um, but then once I get it back after that, I usually can keep it pretty good because I've worked the bugs out of it. So I would suggest that's kind of where you are on this trick. It looks like you've landed it a bit, like there's still a piece that's not fully set in stone in your muscle memory, and now you're kind of going through that part where you've lost it and you're trying to get it back. So I wouldn't get too down on yourself. I think that's a normal kind of phase in a lot of tricks in wakeboarding. So I wouldn't get down on yourself. I'd say we're probably toward the tail end of your journey with this trick, and once we can get it figured out, it should be consistent for you. So a couple things. You said you wanted to go bigger and all of that, land it more consistently, have more confidence. Uh, One thing you can do here is when it's kind of choppy out, and it's not bad here, but if the more it is, and I just mentioned this because sometimes people don't like to blame the water conditions on their success of something or not. But when you're loading up a trick like that, the choppier it is, the higher your board's going to ride in the water, and it's not going to feel like you can really sink the edge into the wake. So when you're trying to work on perfecting this, I would try to do it in conditions that are right about here or better. I wouldn't go too much worse than this because you'll probably get more frustrated than anything really fast. But again, that's not to say you can't do it without it. It's just a suggestion that I've learned on progressive edge tricks. If I'm trying to learn something new, um, like that load and release at the wake is much easier if it's a lot calmer because your board's edge is able to sit a little deeper in the water because of the less turbulence. So anyway, just a little side note on that. Another thing you can do, you can also add a little bit of ballast to kind of steepen up the wake here. You could do a back roll without the wake, so I'm not saying you have to have a bigger wake to do this. However, the bigger the wake is, the more it's going to propel you and catapult you into the air when you load it up, and that's going to help make this a little easier, help make the rotation easier and everything. Because right now I have to change your back roll from where it is to where it needs to be. And right now, you're doing this back roll as if you have a much bigger wake. Um, and we need to start bringing your edge in more aggressively closer. So before I get too far into this, let's just take a look and see what it looks like. And I'll just kind of give you my thoughts as we go. One of the things is that you do edge out a lot further than you need to. I know it feels like you need a lot of runway to really run at this thing, um, but you really don't. This trick works just fine without it. Um, and but it was a really well executed back roll. I mean, there wasn't really a lot of issues with it. So let's go back to this and we'll just fine tune some things. So because you go out so wide, it causes your hardest edge to be right here, and you're kind of seated. Like I mentioned before, it looks like you have a really big wake, and you were about to grab it or something. But this one, you just come out too wide and you're too seated. so that when you do hit the wake, you go really flat. I do like how you stand up though and use some legs, which is great. You get nice and tall and everything. So that's really great. And then your back roll looks pretty good. And then it just looks like you don't quite have enough to get it around so you can land on the balls of your feet again. And so your confidence is lost and you drop the handle. Um, but other than that, it looks like the flip and rotation seems to be pretty natural and comfortable for you. So I just want to talk about how we need to adjust this. Right now, you could cut this approach in half. Um, and the reason why is because I want you to save your hard lean for the wake. I don't want you to be leaning your hardest here and then only be forced to back off when you get to the wake. So instead, I want you to come out maybe to right here, and then I want you to be leaning back way harder right here. So let's take a look at another example. This is Kyle Schmidt working on or doing a heel side back roll. Um, and I'm going to save it for the slow motion one here. Here we go. So you'll notice the distance he takes is not too far. He doesn't, I mean, you can see his full approach. He doesn't go out too wide. And then look how loaded he is at the wake. He's really back against his edge, nice and hard. You can see a lot of the bottom of the board still, which means that he's really leaning back and loading the line. The wake is also kind of beefed up and peaked up a little bit more here than yours is. Yours is a little rounded out, which is why I suggested, if your boat can handle it, maybe a little more ballast or adjusting how the ballast distribution is in your boat right now. That might help peak it up a little bit. Again, it's not bad, so I wouldn't stress about that. But if you wanted to go bigger, that's one way that will help you. But the most important thing overall is leaning back against the rope more at the wake. And the only way to do that is to take a shorter approach like Kyle did. It's the only way to really get yourself to force yourself to do it. And then at this point, the line tension should catch back up to you, and it should help pull you upright for the landing. And that feeling, and I want you to watch the rope. So the rope gets really tight right here, and then it goes loose right here. You can see how it's kind of drooping, and then it tightens back up and helps you stand back up. Right now, the way yours is functioning is it's just a static kind of mellow thing right now. So you're seated, and then you stand up and get flat, and there's no, like, it's still tight all the way through it. There's no real like loose rope at any point, and it just kind of stays there until you let go. So if you load it up hard, it'll be a harder load here. It'll get looser in the middle, and then it will tighten back up for your landing, and that will make you feel confident, like you have something to rely on when you land and edge away. And again, it's just loading up right at the wake. So here's a couple ways that you can work on that. This drill is called low impact heel side back roll progression. This drill in particular is really, really helpful because it forces you to load extra hard because you have no wake. And you can go through the steps if you'd like. I don't know if you've seen this before or how much research you've done on the site. But this one's really helpful for people just learning and just starting. And I also like to take people back through it who have built some really bad habits or can't get out of a rut with their current back roll. It's nice just to kind of experience, to remember how the fundamentals feel. And then you can also watch this video called Heelside Back Roll Analyzing the Clip. And this goes over a lot of what I've been talking about previously. And it's that example that I showed you of Kyle. And he breaks down every piece of this and what he's thinking and what he's feeling and why he does what he does. So this should help you. This is a really good back roll to mirror yours after. And then we also have some other things here on the site, like this POV head cam version of me doing a back roll. So you can see here what I'm looking at and what happens. And it does slow down through this one in the second one here. But you'll notice that as I load through the wake, like I load hard enough to where the board is out. this is kind of hidden from it. The board is out in front of me far enough to where I can actually still see the board in the frame here, where I couldn't when I was standing upright. So the board is pretty far out in front of me because I'm leaning back so hard. And then I look through the flip, and then I spot the landing, and you'll watch the rope sort of pop up out of the corner here. And this is when it gets tight again. When it gets tight again, I push the handle toward the flats a little bit just to help correct myself. Because when you load it up really hard, it may pull you front side about 90 degrees, and this is me canceling that out, um, and then landing back on my heels. But I hope that makes sense. We do have some good resources here for you on the site. Um, and hopefully, if you browse through those, this should give you kind of a better understanding of that. And then you can work on some of the drills. The biggest thing is right now is to force yourself to go at about half the distance you've been edging out and save your hardest lean for right at the wake. It sounds really redundant, but it really works. I know we say it all the time. But if you were to start even right there and come in and then load up harder, you should be leaning back way harder here. And that's going to propel you into the flip faster, higher, and then get you back around to your feet a little quicker. So hopefully that helps, and you can submit another video of your improved attempt, and we can kind of go back and forth there and hopefully get you solved this and have this be a very consistent trick for you. So thanks again.